Good morning, everyone. Boker Tov. In this week's Torah portion, we read the tragic tale of Joseph and the brothers. How Joseph is beloved by his father Jacob more than all the other children. And our rabbis say never show favoritism to one child over another, because it could lead to very grave consequences, as we see in this week's Torah portion. That because of the jealousy of the brothers towards Joseph, who had the coat of many colors, compounded by the fact that Joseph had these dreams of greatness, of grandiose leadership, of all the brothers bowing down to him. And he relates these dreams to his brothers, which only infuriate and irritate them even more. Ultimately, one day when he's out in the field alone, they strip him of his coat of many colors, throw him into a pit, and then sell him into slavery. And we watch in this week's Torah portion as Joseph descends into Egypt, sold into slavery, and then accused falsely by his master's wife of trying to seduce her, and then thrown into a prison. And by the end of this week's Torah portion, Joseph goes from being the favorite child with the coat of many colors to a prisoner in Egypt. But then we watch as the brothers take the coat of many colors that they stripped off Joseph, they dip it in goat's blood, which is similar to human blood, and they bring it back to their father, and they say, "We found the coat in blood of your son, of Joseph, our brother. A wild animal must have devoured him." And Jacob weeps over his beloved son, his oldest child from his beloved wife Rachel. And the entire family tries to console him, to comfort him over the loss of his son. But the Torah says, "Vayima'en lehisnachem." He refused to be consoled. He was inconsolable. And he mourned and he wept for his son. And the rabbis say he mourned and wept for Joseph for 22 years, until ultimately in Parshat Vayigash, when Joseph reveals his identity to the brothers, Jacob comes to Egypt and is reunited with his beloved son Joseph. But Rashi tells us something very powerful. Rashi says, why did Jacob suffer 22 years the loss of his son? Now rabbis say, because he left his father's home, Isaac's home, to go to the house of Laban when he ran away from Esau, and he spent 22 years in the house of Laban. And because he did not honor his father during these 22 years, because he was away from home at the house of Laban, therefore God punished Jacob measure for measure, that he lost his beloved son, who was not there to honor him for 22 years. But furthermore, just like the story of Jacob being taken away from his father Isaac was through an act of deception, that he deceived his father in order to take the blessings, so too Jacob loses his son Joseph through an act of deception, where the children deceive their father about the whereabouts of Joseph, not telling him, of course, that they threw him into a pit. But it goes even a step further. Just like the act of deception that Jacob did with his father Isaac was through garments, by putting on the clothing of his brother Esau, so too the deception of the brothers to their father Jacob about the whereabouts of Joseph was also through an act of deception, which was through clothing, taking the coat of many colors of Joseph and dipping it in goat's blood. And you see how this story mirrors the story of Jacob and his father, and everything is measure for measure. But our rabbis tell us, just like God punishes measure for measure, God rewards measure for measure. And every good deed we do in this world is rewarded measure for measure. Sometimes the reward doesn't come immediately, but God always rewards. Unlike the sarcastic, cynical statement, no good deed goes unpunished, our rabbis teach us that no good deed goes unrewarded. And God always rewards measure for measure. One of the most beautiful mitzvot in the Torah is honoring your parents. And it's illustrated once again in this week's Torah portion. This Shabbat I was talking to one of the young, wonderful girls in our YJP, our Young Jewish Professionals. And I've known that this girl's father had been laid off from work 8 months ago. And she had told me her parents live up in the Tampa area. And she had told me that, unfortunately, her father was laid off. He's 66 years old. And he's been applying for jobs and he can't find a job. And she told me my father's very depressed. And he's losing weight. And he's just very disappointed that he's been sitting home all these months. So I asked her on Shabbat, how's your dad doing? And she said, she lit up. She said, I have good news. He just started a new job 2 weeks ago. And I said, Mazel Tov, I'm so happy to hear that. And she said, but let me tell you how he got his job. She said, I've been sending his resume all over because I'm trying to help him. She's a bright lawyer. She lives and works here in West Palm Beach. And she said, I've been trying to find him a job to no avail, no luck. And finally, I came on an idea. I started writing to every politician in our era, congressmen, senators, state representatives, the mayor of Tampa, saying, you are our local representatives, and we're told to turn to you if we need something as a constituent. My father and mother are constituents of yours. My father is unemployed for 8 months, and he needs a job. And she described the situation of her father and sent along the resume. Lo and behold, her father got a call from the office of the mayor of Tampa saying, we received your daughter's letter. We are so touched that your daughter sent out these emails. Please come in for an interview. And sure enough, they found him a wonderful position in the government, and now he's working for the mayor of Tampa. I was so inspired by this young girl who shows us once again, what does it mean to honor a father and mother? To think out of the box, to be creative, to say, my father's pain is my pain, and I will not rest until I solve it. And surely God will reward her measure for measure, just like God rewards every person for all their good deeds. Have a wonderful day.